So in this video, we're going to be talking about semicircles. We're going to begin with our general equation for a circle. And to get it into a semicircle, we're going to rearrange it to make y my subject. So I'm going to rearrange it in order to make y my subject. So how am I going to go about that? The first thing I'm going to do is move this over to my other side. So I'm going to get y b squared equals r squared minus x minus a squared. I then am going to square root both sides to get rid of this squared here. So I'm going to get y minus b equals plus or minus the square root of r squared minus x minus a squared. I scroll down. This will be y equals b plus or minus the square root of r squared minus x minus a squared. Now, there's something that we should notice here, and that's the fact that I have this plus and minus. This plus and minus is going to be very important for when it comes to drawing the semicircle. And let me zoom out here for a second and show you why. If I have a plus, that means I'm dealing with the top half of my circle. And if I'm dealing with a negative in front of my square root, that means I'm dealing with the bottom half of my circle. There are a few other important things we should be noticing here. Secondly, how would I identify what my radius is? Well, it's simply going to be the square root of this value. How am I going to identify what my center is? My center is simply going to be this value, but the sign will change, and this value, b. But notice this time that my sign isn't changing, and that's because I had to plus b to both sides, so my sign changed then, so I don't have to change it again. So I have a and b as my center, and my radius will simply be the square root of this value here, so r. Perfect. Having now explored it, this semicircle form, let's now do some questions. So here is our form, and we should immediately identify some key features. First of all, what does this minus in front of the square root tell us? It tells us that we're going to be dealing with the bottom half of a circle. What does this 9 tell us? This 9 tells us that my radius will be 3. What does this -4 tell us? It tells us that my center will be at 4. And what will be my y value of the center? Well, since I don't have any plus b's, let me scroll up here. So notice that we had a b here before. Because we have no b there, that means we're going to get a 0. If you're a bit confused about how I got my center, what you could do is actually rearrange this to get it back into the circle equation form that we all know. So to do that, I would square both sides. Let me go this way because I'm running out of room. I would then rearrange it. So I would now bring this over to this side. I would get x minus 4 squared plus y squared equals 9. This is what we normally deal with. And when it's in this form, it's quite obvious that my center will be plus 4 and 0. And that's what we find here. And my radius will be 9. I then would come here and plot that. So my center is 4, 0. 4, 0 is there. My radius is 3, so I'm going to go 3 this way to get to 7, 0. Then I'm going to go 3 this way. 1, 2, 3. Yep, that's right. 1, 0. And then I'm going to go 3 down. 1, 2, 3 down, which will be 4, -3. Then I would connect up my points. Again, it's very important that in a test yours would look better than this, but that's basically what you're dealing with. Now you should attempt to do this one for yourself. Again, pause the video and give it a go. What you should be able to realize is that my radius will be 1 based on this. My center will be, change the sign there to make it 3 and 0. Also notice that there is a plus in front of my square root. Of course we can't see it, but we know that it's there. So we know we're dealing with the top half of a circle. So I go to my center, 3, 0. I only have a radius of 1, so it's going to be 1 up, 1 there, 1 here, and graph it. And of course, you would then mark all your intercepts, you would mark your center. And an important question that I'm going to leave with you for both of these questions is, could you identify the domain and the range for both of these? This is going to be an important skill for you to develop. So it's something you have to continuously ask yourself. Could I identify the domain and range of these? But let's continue. So now we're asked to sketch this. Again, we're going to identify the key features of this semicircle. Let me go to a blue. What will the radius be? The radius will simply be the square root of this number, which will be 6. And the center will be -3 and 3. Notice that I had to change my sign because it hadn't been brought over. If it was brought over as it normally is when we're dealing with semicircles, then I would have left it as 3. But because it's still on my left-hand side, I have to change it. Now this is where some people might get confused, but a way in which you can always figure out what your center is when you're dealing with semicircles is by putting it back into the circle form of the equation. So in this case, I would square both sides to get rid of my square root, and I would be left with y minus 3 squared. I would then plus this over to my other side, and I would get x plus 3 squared. These will plus together, and I'm going to be left with 36 on this side. Now it becomes obvious that my center will be -3, which is here, and +3, which is there. So whenever you're getting stuck in this form, you should always put it back into your circle equation to figure out what it is. Now that I have my radius and my center, I can now graph it. So 3, -3. Sorry, -3, 3. Can't read. This is -3, 3. Then I'm going to go 6 up. So I'll look at my y value and go, what is 3 plus 6? It will be 9. So it's going to be up here. -3, 9. Then I'm going to minus 6 in order to go this way. So -3 minus 6 is -9. So it's going to be here, -9 and 3. Oops. And then I'm going to plus 6 in order to go this way, which is going to get me to 3. So this will be 3, 3. So 3, 3, -3, 3, -9, 3, and -3, 9. I notice that I'm going to cross my y-intercepts. So I'm going to have to find what that is. So to find my y-intercept, I'm going to have to let x equal 0. I'm going to use this equation to do that. So I'm going to be left with y minus 3 equals the square root of 36 minus 0 plus 3 squared, which will be y minus 3 equals the square root of 36 minus 3 squared is 9. And then I'm going to be left with y minus 3 equals 36 minus 9 is 27. Y equals 3 plus the square root of 27. The square root of 27 is going to be somewhere here. And it was going to be 0, 3 plus the square root of 27. close brackets. And then I'm going to get my pen. I'm going to give this a draw. That is absolutely beautiful. That is nearly perfect. So that is something that you should try drawing. That smoothness is what we're after. But notice I've labeled my center, where it begins, where it ends, what the top is, and what my intercept is. Again, what's my domain and range? This is what you should be thinking. Let's go into the next one. I'm going to leave this one for you to solve. The thing you should be noticing is that now my 3 is on this side. How is that going to change things? But again, I want you to try this one for yourself, and the answer with the work solution will be on the OneNote for you to check after you're done. Let's keep on moving now to this. So notice that we made y the subject. And when we made y the subject, when I had a positive in front of my square root, that corresponded to the top half of my circle. And when I had a negative, it corresponded to the bottom half of my circle. So here's an example of y equals plus the square root of 4 minus x squared. And as you can see, it's the top half. And when it's minus, it's the bottom half. And all of this is when we're making y the subject. But what if we were to make x the subject? Well, if we were to make x the subject, then that would mean when it's positive, I'm going to get the right-hand side of my circle. And when it's negative, I'm going to get the left-hand side of my circle. The reason why I bring this up is because there are some questions in the textbook which are going to require you to know this. Hopefully this video has been useful to you and has enabled you to recap what we did in today's lesson.